Dallas-Fort Worth, this is North Texas in Focus. This show takes a closer look at issues and concerns around the Metroplex. We bring you the show on 88.1 Indy and 881indy.com.
Hi, I'm Matthew Reyna. This is North Texas in Focus. My guest on the program today is McKinney, Texas Mayor George Fuller. Mayor Fuller is the chief executive of one of the fastest growing cities in the country. McKinney's population is now estimated by the United States Census Bureau to be over 200,000 residents, and it's getting bigger every day. Mayor Fuller was elected in 2017 and re-elected early last summer. He has led the city through COVID-19, last year's winter storm, and all sorts of the bumps along the road that come with the territory of being the mayor. I spoke to Mayor Fuller on Wednesday afternoon, and we discussed the federal bipartisan infrastructure law, how it's affecting McKinney, some new faces in McKinney's state and federal delegation, and every community's favorite news, the imminent arrival of HEB. I started our discussion by asking Mayor Fuller to describe what it was like to lead a city in 2021 in the era of pandemic and snowstorm.
Well, I'll tell you, it was all of those things were things I could not have anticipated, and I certainly didn't anticipate. When you think about when I was elected in 2017, we first had the George Floyd incident, which brought a lot of social unrest across the country. We had COVID, we had Wintergeddon storm, as you mentioned, and then a recession. So, those are all very, very challenging things I didn't, as I said, anticipate. But we've got a resilient community and a resilient county and state, and I think we weathered that storm, no pun intended, well. And but it was definitely came with its challenges, and there was a lot of difficult times, but I think we're stronger for it, and we certainly, as I said, we're resilient. We rebounded very, very quickly on the economic side.
Let's talk about something perhaps a little bit more positive on the economic side. The bipartisan infrastructure law was signed by President Biden last year. Is that having any positive impact on McKinney yet?
Those funds are just now going to start seeing states and ultimately our areas as we as a city and a county appeal to the state and make application, if you will, for those funds and projects in our area. So those dollars aren't hitting the street yet, so to speak. And again, no pun intended there either. But we're going to start seeing that, and so we feel that our region, McKinney, North Texas, we're all going to benefit significantly. I think there was a great bill, and certainly something that will have a very positive impact on Texas and North Texas, and certainly up here in McKinney and Collin County, where we're arguably behind on infrastructure road-wise, major thoroughfares,
And obviously the person most responsible for making sure those federal dollars make it to the local level is going to be your local congressman. Right now, that's Van Taylor. In the next Congress, it'll likely be Keith Self. That's a pretty rightward shift for your federal delegation. Does that help or hurt McKinney?
For me, what I ask of the delegation is I implore everyone to be purpose-driven in their decision-making versus partisan-driven. And that's a very, very hard thing to find these days, is purpose-driven decision-making and purpose-driven existence. It seems like we've entered an arena of partisanship like we've never seen before. So how that will impact us, assuming that's what you meant by, you said shift to the right.
A rightward shift from Van Taylor to Keith Self.
And so I hope, whether it's right or left, that people think purely in terms of purpose-driven when they're making their decisions. So, but I'm someone that's a little bit, I don't want to say cynical, but a realist, I think, more accurately, in that we're in a world today that partisan and partisanship politics are deafening. They're crippling. We are, as a nation, tremendously, in my mind anyway, misguided on who our enemies are. My enemy is not my child who might be a Democrat, me being a Republican, or my neighbor. Those aren't my enemies at all. Those are people with a different idea of how to get where we all want to go. We all want a place. We want safe communities. We want great roads. We want safe schools. We want opportunity for ourselves and our family and our kids, and that's what we all want. We just may have a different idea how to get there, and the idea that we've gotten to a place that we can have those discussions respectfully and realize that someone may have an idea worth listening to on the other side is a world that is beyond me. And I feel is if there's going to ever be a demise of our country, it's going to absolutely be from within. We will destroy ourselves because we just are too ingrained in our battle stations, political battle stations, to realize our enemy is not our neighbor. It might be someone across the ocean, but it's not our neighbor.
And do you see less of those battle stations at the local level where you don't have an R or a D next to your name?
It would be great to be in my position as a nonpartisan position, which I take very seriously, and not have to deal with the partisanship of it. But no, if you watch my last election, my opponent and the opposition made that election the most primary election it could be. And it was all about partisan politics, and the attacks were all partisan driven. And there's legislation every year that's proposed by some legislator that wants to make local election politics partisan driven. And again, if we want to fast track ourselves to a demise, let's do that. Let's just keep driving a political wedge between us in every avenue and space that we possibly can.
Well, we will have, speaking on the legislation that comes every year or every other year, it will be Texas legislature time here in about 4 months. What would you like your state delegation focused on in 2023?
I would love my state legislative body to ignore the American Exchange Legislative Council agenda, which is a group that every year focuses, and their primary focus is how to remove power at the local level to make it easier and more profitable for businesses. Quite frankly, that's their legislative objective. Great sounding name of an organization, but their objective is purely they work for large corporate bodies and interests, and large corporate interests are not always in line with us, our personal resident interests. We want good competitive environments for companies, but whether we're talking about things that are important to this community, open green spaces, trees and whatnot, and I say that from just again quality of life perspective. We want to be able to have those decisions at the local level and not taken away at the state level. So what I would ask my legislative body to do is turn a deaf ear to empowered Texans and to the American Exchange Legislative Council agendas, and be purpose-driven, not partisan-driven, not primary money-driven, not what's my next reelection going to look like, and will there be a primary opponent because I didn't achieve the scorecard, the Empowered Texan scorecard grade that I needed to. If you have, you've probably failed miserably in purpose-driven decision-making.
How do you think cities and municipalities fared in the 2021 session?
Okay, but there was a lot of bills that were passed that were not good. And I won't out one of our legislators, but I had a meeting with one not too long ago. It was actually with a group of mayors and elected officials, and that legislator said, when I brought up a number of bills that were passed that they had voted for that were that had dire impact, fiscal financial impact on our communities, everyone in that room for that matter, they didn't know what bill I was talking about, didn't know the bill by name. Once I gave them some information on the bill, they acknowledged that, well, we're usually a foot deep, if that, in bills. We don't get a chance to read everything. A lot of times we're voting on bills that we don't even understand. First thing I would ask my legislators, don't vote on something you don't understand. Take the time to reach out to your elected officials and return their calls when they call you, and have the dialogue with them, and understand the bill before you vote on it. Because when you sit there and tell a room full of mayors that you voted for a bill that you didn't understand and were a foot deep and didn't have time to read, and that bill cost everyone in that room, every municipality in that room, somewhere between $800,000 and $2 million a year in tax or franchise fee dollars, that's a problem. Or if you vote on a bill, HB 2349, I believe it is, I could be wrong on the bill number, that remove the ability for a municipality to manage and have any authority or control over building materials that are used, and which has had a significant impact on the on the hardscape of our communities. Don't tell me that you didn't know what you were voting for when you had every opportunity to reach out to your local officials. So, there was bills like that passed. This particular legislator, again, promised to be diligent in trying to pass the bill against taxpayer-funded lobbyists. Now, he's got a great soundbite, and I'll say it's a he, so they don't get confused with maybe one of our female legislators that is not the person I'm talking about. But he's got a great soundbite that taxpayer-funded lobbyists, using taxpayer money to lobby against bills that are the benefit of the taxpayer, i.e., property tax cap. Well, that's a great soundbite with zero truth to it. When myself and every mayor across the city was talking about the property tax cap, it wasn't that we were against a property tax cap. Since I've been mayor, property tax rate has never been anywhere near the cap that was in existence or the cap that's been now adopted from the tax cap bill. What we were saying is stop holding a shiny ball that would amount to a $4 a month savings to my taxpayers if I was at the ceiling of the tax cap, which again, we've never been. So there's actually no savings to my constituents at all. It was tie it to and partner it with a finance reform bill where the real savings is. And the real savings that every single taxpayer in the city of McKinney who experienced over the last number of years have zero. Let me be real clear on this. Zero to do with the property tax cap that was passed, because we were not over that tax cap and we've not approached it. The money, the savings that every taxpayer has realized has been because of the school finance reform bill that was passed, that myself and every mayor across the city demanded and lobbied for. I shouldn't say demand. We lobbied for our legislators, and the lobbyists that we have engaged fought and tried to educate our legislators on that's where the impact is. And had we not had that voice, and had we not pushed that, and had we not made constituents aware of that, and had that voice be what it was, I don't believe that bill would have gotten passed. It's been talked about every legislative session for the last 10 years and hadn't been passed, but it was that session. So the soundbite is great, but again, they can wave their hand and say, hey, we got a property tax cap passed. Well, you've saved my constituents not a single penny, not a penny. The savings has been in tax reform, a school reform bill. So anyway, these issues are a lot deeper than the sound bites and the bumper stickers that some legislators will use. And we have some good legislators too, by the way. And legislators that I have a lot of faith in. Jeff Leach, that I think is going to be very purpose driven in his decision making, and Angela Paxton, one of our state senators, Frederick Frazier, who I believe will probably be in the legislative body this coming elected this November. So I'm hopeful, but we have fared okay, but not great as cities.
And you think that would be a help to you, having if Frazier is elected, which, by partisan trends, it looks like he probably will be, having a former colleague in the legislature, you think that'll help McKinney?
What my hope is my hope is that Frederick will continue to make his decisions based on the experience he has, and the experience he has coming from a city council is he knows how important these decisions are at the local level. And he knows how SB 1152 franchise bill that benefited the utility companies greatly and cost hundreds of millions of dollars across the state to cities and taxpayers. He knows the pain that has caused. He knows that He knows that kind of bill should not have been passed. He knows the impact to the city. So my hope is that Frederick is going to take that knowledge and that experience that he has and make decisions that come from somebody with an experience on a city council that has had to look at budgets and approve budgets and had to make up that difference for franchise fees that were taken away again and put to the bottom line of a large corporate conglomerate, which, by the way, spent $10 million lobbying for that bill and wrote the bill. Why did my legislators vote for it? Well, when I asked that question at this meeting a couple of weeks ago, they actually didn't know what the bill was, didn't know the impact of the bill, and acknowledged that they just didn't understand it when they approved it. Boy, again, let me give a warning. Don't sign a bill. Don't vote for a bill that you don't understand.
That sounds like lawmaking 101.
Yeah, and so I have a lot of faith, and I'm encouraged by a number of our legislators, and I am dismally disappointed by a number of others.
Okay, so to move on to maybe some more less policy ground, but something that every community loves is the imminent arrival of HEB. So. Yes. So HEB's broken ground in McKinney. I saw something about that on your Instagram while I was researching for the show. And we want to talk about how that came about. But HEB is actually an export of my hometown, the greatest city in the world, San Antonio, Texas. So first, as a native,
good city.
We'd like to first, as a native, say you're welcome for HEB. But tell listeners how that came about, and what was your role in the city council's role in facilitating one of the first 3 DFW HEBs.
Yeah, we're blessed to have HEB come. You talk about a company that is a socially compassionate company and cares about their employees, and every employee that works there is a partner with an equity stake in the company. Basically, I don't know of many companies that operate the same way they do. Coming into a community and asking, hey, they bought this land a while back, right? My role, I'd love to say that we had this tremendous role. We didn't. Our role was asking HEB and trying to encourage them to come. And when they had some issues that needed to be addressed from a utility and infrastructure standpoint, we were right there to figure those out and make sure that the pathway was there. So to that extent, we participated. But they came here, quite frankly, and sat with us. And unlike almost any other meeting I have, when I sit with a company that's coming to McKinney, most of the time, 95% of the time, that meeting starts with after the flowery discussion about what they are going to bring to the city. They want to know what the city's going to do for them, what financial incentive, what this, what that. HEB was very, very different. HEB came in, sat down, and started off the conversation with, how do we be great community partners? How do we get involved in your city? What are the charitable organizations? How do we identify them? How do we touch them? How do we support them? That was what HEB did from the moment they sat with me in the very first meeting, is identify what they could do as a company for the city. And and not to go back into partisan for a second, but I also know that there's been some partisan rhetoric, and some anti-HEB from some on the right. I tell you, before you start casting those stones, take a lesson from what they do with their employees, healthcare, and in the communities. And if you are achieving and doing all that, then I'll listen to a stone you might want to throw. But until you're doing what they're doing, be quiet, sit on the sideline, and appreciate the work they're doing. That's what I would tell you.
Now, you were reelected last year. You're right in the heart of your second term. Have you paid any thought to any plans you might have at the end of your term? Any aspirations for higher office, perhaps?
I've been courted by a number of groups and organizations to run for a number of different positions, everything from state rep positions to U.S. Congress positions. You might know where the position that might be. And I don't know that I will or I won't. I certainly am leaving the door open. I have those conversations. Certainly, one might say that with my background and the way, quite frankly, that I very candidly am speaking in this interview, would tell you that that historically, me running in a partisan primary race would be very difficult, and that's probably true. That, of course, attracts me more because I love a challenge, and I believe the way that I'm speaking, and I believe the way that I will conduct myself in any position I'm in, and that is, again, to be a broken record, purpose-driven, not partisan-driven decision making. I'm motivated to seek an office to prove that that you can be purpose-driven in your thinking and decision making. And by the way, I believe that most legislators, in their thinking, they understand the purpose-driven, having the courage to make those decisions in the face of, again, the empowered Texan groups of the world that want to beat you into submission, which I think are campaign finance reform. We won't get into that, but if you want to fix the country, start there. So I'm lured to running for a position to test those waters and challenge that thought that someone like me couldn't win a primary, but because I believe it's necessary. I believe we need voices, and I'm certainly not the only one. There's thousands of them out there that are sick and tired of the partisan nonsense and the inability to, we're in a place now where politicians seem to have the greatest success if they appeal and exploit the worst in human nature. You have the greatest success if you exploit fear, anger, hate, all those things. And as I said earlier, I believe that the demise of our country, if there is a demise, it will be at the hands of that very thing. And so I'm highly inclined and motivated, and it is alluring to me to think about going in another step in partisan politics to break that mold. To be one of, I wouldn't be the only. Again, I'm not saying there aren't others out there. There certainly are, but it's not the norm today.
So to be determined.
Be determined, and listen. If I run a race, if I do, and I run that race, and I won't, you won't hear me changing my tune running. I will say what I believe is right. And if I don't win that race, or if I win and end up losing a re-election, because I was purpose-driven in my decision-making and my voting, I can live with myself all day long. I won't be on my deathbed thinking, God, I can't believe I didn't appease empowered Texans. I can't believe I got an F on that report card. What I will think back on is, did I make decisions that were driven by the right principles? We all, I'm not going to say we all. There's a lot of people talk about and wear a lot of religion on their sleeve. I want to see that. I want to see those biblical principles being manifested into the decisions being made.
Well, Mayor Fuller, we always enjoy having you on the program and speaking candidly. So thanks for being with us today.
You're listening to North Texas in Focus on 88.1 Indy or 881indy.com. If you have something you'd like to hear addressed on a future show or any questions, you can send email to info@881indy.com. That's info@881indy.com.
I would like to thank today's guest, McKinney Mayor George Fuller, and I'd like to thank all of you for listening. This is Mayor Fuller's third time on the program, and he's always welcome back. For KNTU's North Texas in Focus, I'm Matthew Reyna.
This has been North Texas in Focus on 88.1 Indy and 881indy.com. If you have questions or information to share with us, you can send email to info@881indy.com. Thanks for listening.